In the fog-shrouded streets of Victorian London, amidst the gas lamps and cobblestone alleys, a shadow lurked, a figure whose name would become infamous, a name that would echo across centuries and remain etched in the annals of crime forever: Jack the Ripper. He was more than a murderer. He was a phantom of fear, a symbol of terror that gripped the people of London's East End in the autumn of 1888. But even after more than a century of investigation, speculation, and countless theories, the question still haunts us: who was Jack the Ripper? The story begins in Whitechapel, one of the poorest and most overcrowded districts of London. Here, the streets were filled with the destitute, the desperate, and the lost. Crime was rampant, poverty was crushing, and life was cheap. Among those living in the squalor were the women of the streets, prostitutes, who worked the dark alleys to survive. It was among these vulnerable women that Jack the Ripper struck. His reign of terror began on August 31st, 1888, when the body of Mary Ann Nichols was discovered. Her throat had been slashed and her abdomen mutilated. Just over a week later, on September 8th, the body of Annie Chapman was found in similar condition. And then, on a single night, September 30th, Jack the Ripper struck twice. Elizabeth Stride was murdered first, though her body bore fewer injuries than the others, suggesting that the Ripper may have been interrupted. Just 45 minutes later, Catherine Eddowes was found. Her mutilations were even more gruesome than the previous victims. And finally, on November 9th, the body of Mary Jane Kelly was discovered in her room, savagely butchered beyond recognition. 5 women, 5 brutal, unsolved murders, and with them Jack the Ripper disappeared, leaving only blood-stained streets and a mystery that endures to this day. The killings were shocking not only for their brutality but for the precision and method with which they were carried out. The killer seemed to possess some knowledge of anatomy, leading some to believe he might have been a surgeon, or at least someone with medical training. But more than the physical evidence left behind, it was the psychological terror that Jack the Ripper evoked that gripped the public consciousness. Who was he? Was he a man, or was he something more, a symbol of the darkness lurking in society's underbelly? As the panic spread, so did the rumors, the theories, and the fear. The police were overwhelmed, the press sensationalized every detail, and the public demanded answers. But none came. Over the years, dozens of theories have emerged, each one attempting to unmask the man behind the moniker of Jack the Ripper. Some believe he was an ordinary man, a local who knew the streets of Whitechapel intimately. Others suggest he was someone of high society, using the slums as a hunting ground for his own twisted amusement. And still, others believe Jack the Ripper was never one person at all, but a symbol, a manifestation of the fears and anxieties of a society grappling with the rapid changes of the industrial age. Theories, suspects, and conspiracies swirl around this case like the London fog itself. One of the most prominent suspects is Montague John Druitt, a barrister and teacher whose death in December 1888, shortly after the last known Ripper killing, raised suspicions. Druitt's family reportedly believed he was the Ripper, and his suicide seemed to coincide with the end of the murders, but no concrete evidence links him to the crimes. Another popular suspect is Aaron Kosminski, a Polish immigrant and barber who lived in Whitechapel. He was known to suffer from mental illness and had a deep hatred of women, particularly prostitutes. In recent years, DNA evidence from a shawl found near the body of Catherine Eddowes seemed to suggest Kosminski as the killer, though the reliability of this evidence has been heavily debated. While some see Kosminski as the most likely suspect, others argue that the DNA evidence is far from conclusive. Then there's Sir William Gull, a prominent physician and surgeon to the royal family, whose name has been tied to one of the most elaborate conspiracy theories surrounding the case. According to this theory, Gull was involved in a royal cover-up. Some believe that Jack the Ripper was actually committing these murders to protect the royal family from scandal, specifically to hide the secret marriage and illegitimate child of Prince Albert Victor, the Duke of Clarence. This theory, though thrilling, has been largely dismissed by historians as mere fiction. But what if Jack the Ripper wasn't a man at all? Some have speculated that Mary Piercy, a woman convicted of murdering her lover's wife and child, may have been the Ripper. The brutality of her crime and the fact that she was active in London during the Ripper killings have led some to theorize that Jack the Ripper could have been a woman. This theory, known as the Jill the Ripper hypothesis, suggests that the Ripper's gender may have allowed them to move unnoticed through Whitechapel without raising suspicion. But again, no evidence has ever definitively tied Piercy to the murders. As we sift through the suspects, one thing becomes clear: Jack the Ripper's identity may forever remain a mystery. He or she slipped through the cracks of history, leaving behind only the horror of their actions and a trail of clues that have led investigators down countless paths, none of which have led to definitive answers. The Ripper case is not just a puzzle of facts and evidence, it is a mirror held up to Victorian society, a society grappling with issues of poverty, class division, immigration, and the rapid urbanization that had turned London into a sprawling metropolis of contradictions. Jack the Ripper represented the fear of the unknown, the fear of the other, and the fear of the hidden darkness that lurked just beneath the surface of everyday life. And yet, despite the passage of time, the fascination with Jack the Ripper endures. Every few years, a new theory emerges, a new piece of evidence is unearthed, and the mystery is reignited. Books are written, documentaries filmed, and debates sparked once again. But no matter how many times we revisit the case, the shadow of Jack the Ripper continues to elude us. Perhaps it is this very elusiveness that keeps us intrigued. Jack the Ripper is not just a man, he is an enigma, a symbol of the unsolved, of the darkness that humanity fears but cannot look away from. The terror of those 5 brutal murders in 1888 still lingers, as does the question, who was Jack the Ripper? In the end, Jack the Ripper remains a shadow in history forever unknown, forever haunting. His identity may never be revealed, but the legend of the Ripper will live on as one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of all time.